You're listening to the Live Out Loud podcast with River Wynn and Michelle Flamer.
Hi, River.
Good morning, Michelle.
How are you, my love?
I am good, and I'm a little bit tired.
Yeah, tell me about Saturday.
Yeah, I had a wedding yesterday. It was really, really lovely.
And you said was it an Indigenous wedding?
Yeah, yes, yeah. Native
That's
American
so
Indigenous
freaking
women.
cool.
Yeah, yeah.
It got me thinking like we're and I know this might be lame and stereotypical of me, but like were there headdress what's indigenous, like are they just in regular clothing or are they in their
It's like a mix
festival?
of modern and traditional, and I work with this family a lot, and their brides usually tend to wear um, like more modern wedding dresses, and it's more of a modern wedding, but then they hand make their own veils that are very beautiful, these beaded veils that are very special to them.
Wow.
So
Yeah, I
it's
was
a mix.
wondering if it was like color in it and so I mean there's so many beautiful visuals from.
There's a lot of really good food.
Ooh, what was your favorite thing that you ate yesterday?
One of the groomsmen made this incredible pulled pork, and he kept checking back with me. He was like, "Did you try that one over there? Because that one was made with charcoal." And then, "Did you try this one over there?" And he was like, "Go, eat more." And then, of course, one of the
Is he
aunties at
like a
the
barbecue master? Like is
I
he
guess so. And then one of the aunties at the end of the wedding, she was like, can I make you a couple of containers to go? Will you please take?" She's like, "It was part of our culture." She was like, I asked one of the other vendors if they wanted to take the food, and he was like, "Oh, no, I couldn't impose." And she's like, "Please, we want to feed you. Please take the food." So
That sounds
I love that.
amazing.
It's just really fun. I love these weddings in particular because it's just very family oriented, and it's just very inclusive, and it's fun.
Yesterday you and I couldn't record because I was driving here up to Utah and
Yeah.
just on our pre-chat, a deer just came right up to the window, as you know, because my mom came in and was like, "Hi, River," and like just saying, "Look, there was a
Love
deer
your
that just
mom.
was so close." I know it was so cute. So it's great here, to have my daughter and my mom and I under one roof, three generations, a very independent, strong women. And
Love it.
um, but we all three respect and genuinely give each other a chance to move through our relationships. And it's really nice. So, anyways, today's kind of a cool new chapter for us with a new guest in the house. And I'll
Yeah.
have River, I'll have you tell the pod about it and yeah, and how kind of you guys became buddies, like how you connected and things like that. So you do a little bit of that and then we'll let them, take it over.
Yeah, it's really cool because we haven't had a guest in a while. I was thinking about that this morning. We
Yep.
haven't had a guest in a little while. So first we have another guest, and then also it is our first male identified guest on the podcast, which is really exciting.
Woo!
Um, welcome James Kerti to our podcast. James and I met on Instagram, which is like how so many of my amazing friendships seem to start. And he is a poet,
Ooh,
and he does many wonderful creative things that he's going to tell us all about.
I love that.
Yes.
James, welcome.
Thank you, both of you. Thanks so much for having me on. This is really exciting for me.
Well,
It's
I
always
love
so
it.
nice to
And
connect with other people.
it is, well, especially like-minded and all the things. And I love what your work is. It's a very niche focus, but I think it's really powerful. So why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself? I think you'll do a much better job than I will. So yeah.
I appreciate that so much. Yeah, I'm a poet. I've got my first book coming out in the next little bit. It'll probably be out by the
Woo!
time people listen to this. So I
Love
think this
that.
is technically the first time I'm saying sort of publicly. It's called Unfolding Love, Poems for Tender Hearts.
Oh,
Mm.
beautiful.
I've seen the artwork and it's beautiful. It's a
I
beautiful
can't,
book.
I'm
Oh,
so
I thank you.
excited. I can't wait to get a copy. It's going to be fun.
I can't wait for everybody to get their hands on it. I've been writing and sharing poetry on Instagram mostly, I think since sometime during the pandemic. This kind of gets into my backstory a little bit. So I'm living in Portland now, which is where I've connected with River a little bit, but I was living in a tiny little town on the Oregon coast for a while, And I started getting into poetry, reading it at first during the pandemic. Like I think a lot of us picked up some kind of new life-changing pandemic hobby or focus.
Yeah.
And I just started sharing poems that I was reading on my Facebook, which at the time was mostly people who lived in the same tiny little coastal town that I did. And I'd get lovely little comments from people, and sometimes I'd share little things that I was writing, but mostly I just shared stuff from my favorite poets out there. But what I started noticing is that as I'd walk around this tiny little town that I lived in, that like increasingly people would stop me on the street and be like, "Hey, James, I just wanted to tell you how much I loved that poem that you shared the other day."
Mm.
And sometimes these would be people, and I after the interaction, I'd be like, who was that? Like I didn't even know who all these people were, but like I could start feeling that something in me was opening up, that there was this like deeper layer of self-expression that was coming
Mm.
through, that I was forming these new connections with people. And I think that that's something that was just helping me build not only confidence, but helping me build a sense of rootedness and groundedness in the work that I was sharing and the ways that how we share what's important to us from a really open, vulnerable place, and we share the ways that we're changing. I was coming out of a long relationship, a marriage at the time, and opening up to new connections, new ways of being seen in the world. And I think that poetry just became this greater and greater part of this journey. So as I transitioned out of that relationship, moved from a tiny little town to the city, met many wonderful people, many of them women, both on my dating journey and also just out there in the world. It felt like poetry more and more weaved its way into my healing, into my connecting, into my ways of looking at the world. And it's come through in this book that I feel so very proud of, and I'm so very excited to share with people.
It's going to be a beautiful book. I can't wait to read it.
So tell
And
us,
then,
so tell us, yeah. Oh, yeah, go for it, River.
oh, I was going to say, and in addition to being a poet, you also work with women who are, business owners, small business owners, and you want to tell us a little bit about that as well, your company.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I run this little boutique strategy and marketing studio called the Indigo Bloom. I work mostly with women who run online businesses, mostly in the wellness and self-help space. It's something that I've been doing for, I'd say more than a decade, 10, 15 years now, really.
Oh, wow.
And it's been really wonderful to get to support people. I could talk so much about this, I won't, but there's just so many ways I think that the online business space makes it hard to break into, makes it hard to grow, and makes it hard to stay rooted like in who you are and in what matters to you because it's just such a fractured space. There's so many competing influences. There's so many, marketing and strategy folks who will try to make you feel bad about yourself and the way that you're running your business in order to get you to pay them thousands of dollars. And I've just increasingly tried to help people in ways that feel more compassionate, that feel more grounded, because to me, like the world is at its best when we have people, especially women, doing work that they feel passionate about, that uses their creative gifts in the highest possible way,
Mm.
and where they're able to stay aligned and grounded in themselves while helping the people that they're here to help. And
I,
that's something that I care about very deeply.
I feel
Mhm.
like, and you can tell me this, like with regards to the online space, I feel like comparison is the thief of joy, right? It's like, I think it's very easy to say to somebody, oh my God, they have 10 times more followers than I do. What am I offering? Like it becomes like, back on them, like around self-worth and all of that. Whereas like, no, just stay in your lane, just do what you're then the people will follow, people will find you, like just like in the universal law of attraction, right? Like whatever you're putting out, like whoever it's meant to find, it won't pass you by in that sense.
Absolutely, Michelle. I completely agree. And I like how you kind of connected it back to universal law because I think that there's a lot of truth in that. Like in the self-help space, like a lot of us kind of acknowledge that like when you go online on social media, like you're just seeing other people's highlight reels, right? You're not seeing the all the time that they spent crying in their bed,
Yep.
sobbing in the bathtub. You're seeing the best things that they're presenting. And that's also true, I think, in the online business space where everybody's not only like sharing their successes, but the thing is that there's so many people out there sharing successes that you don't have to look very hard at all to see something that's going to make you feel bad. You could
Mm.
have just written a best-selling book, but if this person that you're following is just sharing how their podcast just hit 100,000 subscribers. You start thinking, well, why don't I have a podcast? Or you see this person who just, sold $1 million of their digital course that just came out. You're thinking, why don't I have a digital course? Like all of these thoughts like start racing through your head, and it's just exhausting. You can always find something to feel bad about. So what I try to support people with as best I can is just staying rooted in what's actually true for you, what's actually joyful for you, because my feeling, my truth is that the more that we can all stay grounded in our gifts and our missions and not fall prey to trying to borrow and steal what other people are doing, what other people are good at, the more that we can show up with joy. And to what you said, Michelle, about the right people finding you, like I think when you're grounded in your joy and your creativity, like you become a magnet for the right people for you.
Mm. Yeah, I've found that to be true for myself. Like the more authentic I am to what lights me up and following that, the more people find me who are very aligned.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
definitely. What, like, as far as your coaching goes and everything, like, What what's been the biggest challenge for you other than you being a man, right? Like other than like I think that's really a unique perspective because I know so many women entrepreneurs. I mean, I had my own sales consultancy business for 14 years and I never had to look for business. It was constant referral, referral because I was at 23 trade shows a year. And so people would naturally enjoy being around me, around the other booths and be like, how do I have a you in my booth? And I was like, that was my aha moment of like, how can I do this for multiple companies, basically doing like green lighting the evergreen piece that get lit up by training new sales reps, bringing new reps on, working with my brands and giving them the voice of the customer also. And so I can imagine like for me, like it's mostly women that are owning these businesses. And I think it's easier for them to like talk to me in a sense, like, hey, we need a sales director. You're a female, you kind of get me. And there's just like when I meet other Jewish people, it's like a member of the tribe piece. It's a kind of an unspoken thing. So how it's a long-winded way to say kind of like, how do you step into the space and how, do you ever feel like you're getting pushback at first just because you're a guy and they have their own, old beliefs around men or whatever in business and all that kind of stuff.
That's a really good question. I think for me, Michelle, I've really benefited from word of mouth and referral in my business.
Yeah.
When I kind of first started out in the space, like I was working mostly with men. But I have transitioned over the years to almost an entirely female clientele. Part of that was born out of the fact that my previous partner, when she and I were together, she ran an online business, and I was very deeply involved in that, like increasingly so to the point where I was like kind of doing the sort of like right hand type role that I tend to take on in the business of people that I work with now. And I was able to kind of transition from working with her to working with, I think at first it was like a friend of hers who then introduced me to more people. So it's just kind of steadily built like one woman to another. So I haven't really had to come in like through the front door, so to speak, in most cases, which I think has been something that's made it a lot easier to your point because yeah, like it is different. But I think the fact that I've just surrounded myself by so many amazing women over the last half decade, like in particular, especially like since my marriage ended, and I've just been around the most amazing people, that's helped me get, I think, a better, more compassionate, more rooted understanding of the unique challenges that women face that men don't in life in general, but also specifically like in the online business space. But I think that then in turn gives me a unique perspective because I'm kind of able to sort of step outside of that a little bit. Like I'm not unlearning my own trauma in that space, my own limitations, the same way that women coaches or consultants might be dealing with their own stuff that comes up. So it's something that I've tried to turn into a differentiator and an advantage for me. And it's something that I've really had the opportunity to feel really grateful to get to do for people.
Love
I'm
that. Yeah. Sorry, Michelle. We keep interrupting each other. No, I mean, James, you and I had a call earlier in the week where, you were a sounding board for me on some business things. That was really helpful for me because of your perspective, and you were able to ask me some really critical questions that gave me an opportunity to really find some clarity and like really bring me back to my sense of self when I was kind of in a space of just feeling overwhelmed. And that was really helpful for me. So thank you for that also.
Yeah, I'm,
You
I'm
know,
glad that
my
it
my
was.
my curiosity is like around what are the biggest mindset blocks that women are facing today, in your opinion?
Oh, I love that question.
This is actually a
You
great,
know,
a great question after.
yes. I think it kind of goes back to what I was getting at in my previous answer, which is that there's just so many things like competing to make people feel bad about themselves. And I think in this post-capitalist patriarchal society, like women just get that message over and over again everywhere that
Yeah,
they're either too much or they're
yep,
not enough or they're too
that's
much and
right.
not enough at the same time.
Mhm.
So like I think what I'm able to offer as best I can is like a safe container for people to feel, first of all, like they're enough, and then from that place of enoughness sort of expand and radiate their gifts and their creativity and their greatness outward. Um, so I like that's the thing that I try to offer people, and I think that's just kind of like at the core of this challenge that people face, the too much, the not enough, and just like when you go into the social media space, when you're out there in the world introducing yourself to people, like it's hard not to constantly be feeling like you're overwhelmed and presented with that message and every little piece of feedback or criticism or supposedly helpful intention seems to manage to reinforce that one way or another.
What's been like a fun scenario for you of seeing that first initial like consult that you have with people, you're a new client, and can you tell when they're gonna say yes to you at this point? Like, like, is there a nudge that you get where you're like you've had that first 15, 20 minute consultation, and you know do you feel like in that moment, like, I hope she comes with me because I can really help her? And do you kind of sense that a woman is going to lean in at that point to want to work with you? Do you get a sense of that while you're on the call with them?
Yes and no, because one of the things that I really tried to bring into those conversations and into these relationships in general is not needing to like make a sale, not trying to make a sale. For me, and this also connects with like what my book is about in a way. It's not about trying to get to the outcome. It's just about looking for whatever feels aligned. And like we can let ourselves hold desire or longing or the intention of realizing a goal, but like I think trying to put that expectation on any like one particular person or connection is where we end up with a lot of tension. That's a big part of like the journey that I talk about in my poetry book because that's something that I had to go through as I came out of my marriage and became the person that I am today. So like in those business conversations, like I try to make sure I'm coming in like no matter how much I may think I know about that person, like I don't know them and I'm not the expert on their situation and their business the way that they are. So I'm just looking to listen. I'm just looking to learn and offer whatever support that I can within that container that we have, whether that's a 15-minute conversation or a 2-hour call, whatever it may be. So if there's like an ongoing connection that emerges from there, whether it's us working together or a friendship or an introduction into to working with somebody else, like great. But sometimes the best conversations are just the ones that you have once. In my book, in the introduction, I tell a story about how one of the things that really stuck with me on my post-marriage dating journey was this conversation that I had with a woman. It was about 6 months post-divorce for me. I was on a phone date with somebody, and we had this like long, sweeping, like 2-hour conversation. We were talking about like spirituality and family and just like the tender practice of like being an open, kind-hearted person in a world that's not always so kind to people like that.
Yeah,
And at one
I
point,
feel very, I feel called out at that moment. No, I'm just kidding. I feel very seen in that moment because I am, I am,
yes,
I am one of those, and yeah, it can be heartbreaking for us at times.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a hard thing to like learn how to hold space for that. And at
Hmm.
one point in like this conversation with this woman, she said something that just kind of stopped me in my tracks. She told me this short story about how like when she was a little girl, at one point her mom said to her that we all come into this world holding a bag of crystals, and some of them are broken. And our task in this life is to go through our journeys meeting people and comparing crystals. And sometimes we find somebody who has like a piece or a fragment of our crystal that was broken, and we have an opportunity to like reunite those
I love
crystals
that.
and find, a part of ourselves that can then feel more whole. And
Mhm.
that's something that always stuck with me. I only talked to this person once, so like this conversation itself was like this beautiful crystal. And I've carried that with me through my poetry, through my work that I do. So going back to your initial question, like these business conversations, I just try to embody that mindset that like we're going to have a conversation. It's not about trying to make the sale. I'm just going to be fully present and we'll see what's there.
Which is so lovely, and it feels like you're coming from a very like heart open, heart centered space with that, which is a very strong contrast to how a lot of men show up in the world, especially in a business capacity, a coaching capacity, where it's, all straightforward business, make the sale, like big masculine energy. Like there's no space for the soft, the open, the tender, the heart space. So I love that like, I can feel that you come from that space, and I love it.
Thank you.
Well, I think and not everybody has the same journey. Some of these women you probably talked to were like in corporate America for the majority of their life. Like they just had, like when I walk a trade show and, I'm walking down these aisles where it's like, like in New York, like it's called New York Now, and it's massive, makers and homemade and, people that had these beautiful ideas, and there's aisles and aisles of people sitting in their booths, in their, like, their whole life has been put into this product, and they had an idea, and they were bankers, or they were like, they worked on Wall Street, and I'm having these great conversations with them, but yet they were with their 2-year-old son one day and realized that they couldn't find a toy that really sort of, and so then they create it, and it's so beautiful. So I can imagine like you're meeting all these different women at definitely unique trajectories and have their own, beautiful arc of like where they went to school, if it was like an Ivy League school, and then they like did everything in their mind the right way, or the way that their social family, construct tells them to be, right? Like you move up, you get pregnant, I mean, you get married, you don't have a career right away, like you get to be a mom, like there's all these ways. So I think there's some beauty in the fact that I can imagine that some of these women who are in corporate America, who now have you as a coach, being from a cis male space, you're definitely more emotionally intelligent and softer than most men that I meet, in corporate America. And I can imagine you definitely filling these fragments that have been lost through that space and time, that even just a masculine presence, even if you're as warmth as you are, and you do exude this beauty and this warmth when you're talking, just so you know, I can feel that, meeting of the souls type of thing. And I imagine that because you don't come across like the typical dude in that sense, that there is something valuable for these women on sometimes a level that maybe you're not even conscious about.
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot of truth to that. And I love how you told that whole story. That I think that really fits. For me, like what I try to help people with too, because you mentioned the trade shows, the corporate America, like I think more people need to hear the message that it's okay to be ambitious in your career and in your work, and also to really value being a mom, having a family, being a partner, being soft and squishy and tender. Like these things can all coexist, but we live in a society that tries to make people feel like that's not okay. So I've tried to carve out my own little space where I let that be okay for people because like I do, to your point, Michelle, like I do work with people who have had at least a long foray in corporate America at some point, but I also work with people who, don't have that experience, who, may not have a college education, who have kind of scrapped and clawed and fought their way to being the people that they are now. And I think that's also
Mhm.
something really beautiful to
Oh,
celebrate. So
yeah.
I think like whatever journey somebody's been on to the point where they cross paths with me, like I just really want to show up as fully as I can with presence and honor that. So to the ambition and the tenderness, like I just really want to help people hold that because the mixed messages that like we all get in our own ways in the society, but like especially women, like make people feel like there's only one way to be successful, and that's by grinding for 50, 60 hours a week. For some people that works. They're allowed to go be successful in their own way and have their own definition of success. That's not mine. That's not the definition that most people I work with have. And I want to meet people in their lives like where they're at now. It's not about, trying to figure out how, as a 45-year-old mom of three, how you can have the same energy that you did when you were 25 and single,
Mhm.
or like trying to show up with the same freedom or openness or naivete or presence that you had when you're younger. It's about fully honoring and embodying the experience that you have now and that we're all having in this shared sort of hellscape that we're living in. I think it's important to honor all of those things as being true and then meeting yourself in that place rather than trying to pretend that you're living in a different world or living in a different body or that you don't have the full life that you have.
So now I'm curious, I'm gonna go back to your like you're dating right now, right? You're post-divorce, like you're in the dating world. Like this insight that you now have to women in a sense, right? They're your clients. Like, do you feel like what would you have told your younger self, your 20-year-old self, your 16-year-old self? Like, like if you could go back in time today and be like, dude, let me just talk to you about a few things. Like, would there be anything that stands out for you? That might be that other, if someone was listening today could hear that. Like, I'm just curious in your own personal journey.
Oh, that's such a funny question. I actually have a poem in my book that's about like exactly that thing because that's a question that I ask myself often. And to answer it as best I can,
Wait,
there's
wait, do you have the poem?
I do have the
Why don't
poem.
you just read it?
Okay, I can read
Are you
it.
okay with that?
Yeah, let's do it.
I mean,
Let's
it's
see if
kind of feels relevant. And you even said just now, like you laid it out in a sense, because you're like, actually, I wrote about this recently.
I did. Let's see how quickly I can find it in here.
It's okay.
Where is it living?
I
Here
mean,
it is.
we have our listeners, they're in the car right now. I mean, they're walking, they're at the gym, that kind of thing. So, we
I
there?
got it.
Okay, cool.
Yes. This poem is called What Can't Be Told. Here we go. You could be me. I remember being you. Fragile futures bind us for now, strings of time threading needles, like wizened hands that have sewn stories into seams for generations. If I warned of wintry, winding mountain roads and cliffside gusts from the north that battered my frozen face for nights beyond counting, would you change course before realizing these directions only hold meaning while our shoes share footsteps?
Hmm. I love
Which
that.
is
Yeah.
basically my way of saying that some things can only be lived, that you can't just give that knowledge, even like to your younger self. Because
Yeah.
for me, like this has been a journey of embodiment. There have been many tears that have carved the canyons that I have become. So I don't know that there's any like magic silver bullet lesson or thing that I could give myself, but I think the best attempt that I could do would be to relax expectations around any particular person or any particular situation needing to show up a certain way or be a certain way. Because I think when you notice that happening, when you notice that feeling within you, it's because there's some way that you're not meeting yourself. that you're looking for some part of yourself to be filled or satisfied by another person. And I've learned over the last many years now that that doesn't work. That's not very effective. It's not nice to you. It's not nice to other people. So I think that's the lesson, but I don't know that I could magically like airdrop that into the brain of 30-year-old me or 20-year-old me.
Yeah.
That's how so many of us go about our dating lives when we're younger too. We're like seeking the externals, to feel some kind of void inside, and I really think that, we just kind of float around in the dating world that way until we realize that we can't do anything like that except for fill it for ourselves. No one can fulfill that. We have to do it for ourselves. And then that's when we can pour back out into others.
Well,
Exactly.
I think there's a place in our life where we take for granted that when we were born, and even maybe up till the time we were 5 and 6, we lived our most authentic space. We lived
Yeah.
in our most authentic, most embodied. It's not until the external, meaning our peers, our friends, right? Like at school, start to sort of leak into us in the way, and not in a good way, obviously, I'm alluding to, because they start to tell us why, like that shirt's ugly, or your glasses don't look right, or why you wearing your hair like that, girl, like, it's like it becomes this whole thing. And it's not until you really do go through some heavy stuff. It's the duality, right? You can't reemerge and find yourself again without having those deep, dark nights of the soul, loss, breakup, heartache, grief of losing a parent, losing a dear person in your life. Like it's you, so the reemerging is a journey for sure. And I will say that the last 3 years for me, and a lot of the listeners already know this, but it's walking in your whole authentic being looks really easy on the outside. It is an it is an inside job, and it's a and you have to remind yourself, like, checking in with yourself, like, okay, I'm around three new people here. How am I feeling about how does this energy feel in the moment, right? Like, but you have to have had enough of your healing, enough of your journey, enough of like wanting to grow, like that growth mindset piece and the expansion of self.
Yeah.
And until you can have that, you can't fully be embodied again. And so, and then as you know, like you can only go as far as you can on our own. Like even with our therapist, we can only go as far. It's not until we get into another romantic relationship where we start to use the tools, where we don't know when the mirror is coming up, or if it's a softer mirror and it's reflecting all my beautiful growth, so therefore now I'm seeing me through this beauty of what this person is. And that's that embodiment feeling that I'm really enjoying at this point in my life. But it takes so much energy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's
Yeah.
really hard to explain to other people what that journey looks like. Because, like you said, from the outside looking in, it looks easy. Right now, I'm supporting someone who's going through the early stages of divorce. And we were going for a walk and talk the other day. And I was explaining because she asked me, like, how, where are you at in your dating life? How, you seem like so grounded. You seem so like good being on your own. And I can't wait to get to that space. Like, how did you get there? And I was like, how do I explain?
Uh-huh.
How do I explain the many many nights of just tears and journaling and the dating heartbreaks and all the ways I've had to grow through all of it? Like, how do I put that into a nutshell and hand it over to someone and be like, here's how you do this? I can't. All I
Well,
can do
and then,
is say, like,
Exactly.
you
and
have to go through it, you have to feel it, you have to not push away from it is the big thing. I think you have to like lean into
Yes.
it. And telling someone that and not being able to give them a light at the end of the tunnel is really hard sometimes because they want that light at the end of the tunnel. But we all have to go through it. We all have to move through that ourselves.
But going back into the business perspective here, right? And that trajectory is that it's a different mirror. I'm putting tens of thousands of dollars into this product or into this, and it's still, it's like you crack yourself open when you're saying to someone, this is what I'm worth. This is what, it's the same feeling. It's like, it's not in a romantic capacity where you're being mirrored and you're learning these new things and you're getting triggered and you're having to like navigate romance. It's when you are opening yourself up and you are selling yourself as the business, right? Because I did that. And when I was a dog trainer, when I got out of the Air Force, I was a canine cop in the Air Force. James, I know you don't know this about me, but when I got out of the Air Force, I took a job at PetSmart, Petco, whatever was around. I think it was Petco. And my dad and I made business cards and I put them in my pocket. And I created a cute name, Canine Care, and former U.S. Air Force canine cop. So they would like immediately, that just tells the story, like who I am, and every day that someone would buy puppy food, I would say, I'll carry it out. I'd talk with them through the whole sale, blah, blah, blah. And then I'd give them my card, look, hey, if you need a dog trainer. But sitting down, doing all that easy, super easy. Sitting down for the consultation, like going into their house, telling them in 6 lessons, this is what they're going to achieve. Now I have to tell you how much that cost. And that is a different mirror at 23 that I learned very young in life. But man, did it grow me. Man, did it stretch me. Because then I was like, I'm so worth this. Like now, and then starting like third and fourth. Oh, yeah, by the way, my package is just like 625. If you want to do it individually, blah, blah, blah. Like it was no big deal. But those first couple, and River and I have talked about how, should she raise prices at times? And like I have a lot of experience in building businesses and working in that capacity. So it's just comes down to that. But like working with you, you're now going to create new mirrors for these women that aren't romantic, but they still touch in the same spots of us.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Michelle. I think a lot of it comes down to like visibility and being seen, and especially like that fear of being seen. And like I think the more, whether
Yeah.
it's in your dating life or in business
I just
or
got the
in your
chills when you said
community,
that. Totally.
yeah, exactly. Because it's like, how vulnerable are you? How tender are you? How much of yourself and what matters to you are you revealing? And I think for so many of us, like that's really at the crux of a lot of it. Because when you think about whatever, person's goals might be in their work, in their family, in their health, like so much of it just comes down to like being seen, right? Like feeling comfortable enough in your body to be seen in an authentic way, feeling comfortable in your family to express yourself safely with your partner and to feel rooted in your relationships with your parents and your children and your friends. And, in work, whether it's a product or service-based business or some other way of going about the world, like are people seeing you? And I have found that a lot of the people I work with have, no matter how successful they've been, there's still like some underlying fear of being seen, whether it's being comfortable being on camera,
Being
being known.
known.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether it's like people being afraid of going on a podcast or being on video on Instagram or YouTube or giving a speech in public. Like we all have these things, right? Like regardless of our gender or our history, like we all have some things that make us feel more comfortable than others. But like I think it's when those things are at odds with our goals. Right. Like if you want more visibility in your business, but you're afraid to do press, right? Like those things are gonna butt heads right there if you're trying to get the
Well,
word
because you
out
got to
about
get
your
out of your
business.
own way, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly. You have to get out of your own way. But if you're not willing to let people see you, then there's an upper ceiling on how far you can go. And like a lot of people the last couple years in particular like have asked me about like AI, the concept of AI in general, which is probably a whole other podcast. But for now, what I'll say is this, like I think that the more that society makes use of AI and the more corporations foist it upon us, there's going to be more and more demand for humanness, for realness in all of us, because that's something that AI cannot bring, that I think will never be able to bring, which makes it more important than ever for us as business owners, as creatives, to bring more and more of ourselves. And not just for the sake of the work itself, but because as we market and sell our work and connect with people, like I think it's that humanness that people want. River, this is something that you and I were chatting about the other day a
Yeah.
little bit. Like what makes
Yeah.
like a platform like Thread such a beautiful place right now, at least before Meta ruins it, which will happen at some point, but has not happened as of this recording. Like it's the place where you can go and be yourself and be unhinged.
Mhm.
And rather than just going into a curated space and talking about this perfectly packaged and polished product or service that you offer, you can just be yourself. And if somebody comes across that and resonates with that, then they're going to want to work with you. And whatever they discover about your pricing, your packages, your offer kind of becomes secondary because they already feel this connection with you. So one of the things that I like helping my clients with, or even just people that I'm supporting who are not officially clients, is just helping them get grounded in that place of feeling like they can present themselves to the world, be okay with many people not resonating with that, but the people who do resonate, like those are your folks.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
agree with that because ever since I became a sales director and then started my own sales business company, in 2004, during that time, I started reading a lot about social media and articles, and I even took a couple of like courses at the time. And one thing that was really came clear to me is that people want to follow people. They don't want to necessarily follow a brand. And I've had so many business coaches tell me over the year, Michelle, why don't you have a business page? I go, because that's not how I roll. You're getting me. Like this is me. Like, I don't need a business page. I can still say what I need to say and still promote what I want to promote. But also, I want people to know that I'm a whole 360, individual. Like, I'm a whole pie. I'm not like just fragments over here and fragments over here, or my business side is over here and then this. I like the way River does that too, is that she mixes her business with her who she is. And I think people want to resonate and want to follow, but not only that, like if they have an opportunity to work with me, they already know how I kind of work. And I come from a place of connected. In fact, I'm writing a book called The Connect Effect for business.
Woo!
Yeah,
Love it.
so and I'm here in Utah and I can't wait. I'm hoping to finish it because I'll have like a week off also. So it's like I'm excited for that because but that's just how I've always been in business. It's about connecting. My grandfather in the 40s for Esquire shoe polish used to do what I did. Like we had like when I was on the road while he was still alive, he'd say, "How are your relationships with your reps?" He would really like talk to me about how are my relations because if they are feeling good about me, then guess what? They'll sell my product, my brands that I'm managing. And it works all that way. But he wrote a book called How the Old Man Sold It Faster with Laughter. He did the same thing. So he, meshed business aptitude with personal relationships. And I grew up that way. So I don't know any other way to be. So cutting half of me off to just say, this is my business, it doesn't work for me at least.
Mm.
You know?
Love
So, okay, so
it.
now, so I have a question for you. So, like, how has this whole work changed you, not only professionally, but also like personally and spiritually?
Ooh, such a juicy question.
I love
I
that
th
he used the word juicy, River. That's
I
so
yes,
know,
your
right?
word.
so
That's
juicy.
so cute.
Yes. I think I want to connect this with the thread that you were just sharing, Michelle, in your story, which is like I've noticed so many like connecting threads and themes between like marketing and business and like the dating world. And it's been really interesting to like draw these connections over the last few years. And one of the main things that stands out is that it's really important to just focus on like being aligned with your goals. That is like the people and the results that are actually important to you and disregarding the rest. Like I think like in the business world, like sometimes you'll hear people talk about like, oh, like you got to niche it down, oh, you got to find your ideal clients, like all of this stuff. And we can get into exactly how much truth there is in that. But like There is some, but I think the real, like, more spiritually oriented lesson within that is to focus on the people who actually matter to you. You know,
Mm.
everybody has value, but like when it comes to your goals, only some people or aligned with that. So like if you're running a business and you have a very particular idea of, okay, I work with newlyweds, like somebody might say to themselves, okay, well, if I'd be like, well, if you work with newlyweds, then anybody who's not like a newlywed, you don't need to appeal to them in your marketing. Like you don't need to worry about alienating them. You don't need to worry about them not resonating with your stuff because you only care about making this particular group of people feel like you understand them better than anybody else in the world. And I
Mm.
think it's kind of the same with dating, particularly for those of us who are more like monogamously oriented, because if you're looking for one long-term monogamous partner, as I am, like I come at it with the mindset that like, okay, like I only need to find one person. Like I don't need to make a million people fall in love with me. I don't need to be everything to everyone. I'm just looking for one. Like I'm just looking for one. And if somebody isn't aligned with me and what I'm looking for and what I want, and if they don't think that I'm the most amazing person in the world pretty much, then they're not for me. And that just has to be totally okay with me. If I were to go
I,
through
my
my
dad
business
used to
life,
say, my
yeah.
dad used to say as a headhunter, it's like kind of a sales 101 thing, but
Mhm.
every no, you're closer to a yes.
Yes, exactly. Every no, you're closer to a yes. And so if you look at it that way rather than like, oh, I just failed again. Because like so many of
No,
us have
because
been
you
through
learned a
that.
lesson. Hopefully, if you're
Yeah,
in the space of
hopefully you
growth,
do.
then you're like, so my whole question this year has been, what's the lesson? Like I always ask myself that, what's the lesson? It kind of takes me out of like, oh, it didn't work and being all bummed about it, but more like, ooh, what did I learn through
It's
that?
it's growth opportunity. If you look at,
It keeps you in the
anything.
present too, River. It keeps you
Yeah,
present in that.
exactly. Any door that shuts, any no, it's like this is an opportunity to grow and expand.
Well, and James, as you know, as a spiritual human being, a soul, humans, yeah, is that authenticity is the highest vibration that we can have. It's not love, it's not fear, it's not anger, it's not all these other things. It's authenticity. So what I'm gathering from your personal mission is you're saying to these entrepreneurs, shut the fucking noise up. Just quiet everything around you. Like, don't listen to that. Stay in your pocket. Those the people they will find you. Like, stay in your authenticity and your pocket, and you're gonna thrive in this space.
Exactly. Exactly. Because like I think unless you're being authentic and projecting that authenticity outward, like the other things that you want, like I don't know that they're entirely possible. Like even love, which amazing, like we all want that. But like if you're not rooted in authenticity, I can't think of the exact quote right now. I'm sure quite sure this is something that Bell Hooks wrote about a lot. But like there's just this thing that like if you're not being your authentic self, then like anybody who thinks that they may be falling in love with you are not falling in love with the real you. Same thing is true in your business. Like at some point, like the truth comes out of who you are and who other people are and who your business is and what you're offering. So why not just lead with that, right? Like why not just skip the part where you pretend to be something that you're not, where
Yep.
you hide your flaws, where you
Preach.
hide the tension and just bring that out. Like there's so many good people in the world and yeah, there's some mean people who are going to try to make you feel bad, but like this is why you surround yourself with wonderful people to help you stay grounded, to help you stay as safe as possible in your container in this larger bubble of a world that is not always kind. So I'm right there with you on the
Well,
authenticity,
I think
Michelle.
like even like James, like even in the dating spectrum, it's like someone's going to follow. Like if someone just met you online and they even get a hint of what you do, it's easy to Google you at that point. What have you been putting out? Like I think when people are just walking their authentic life, no matter where they've come from and all that, like I'm just drawn immediately to the fact that they're lit up about stuff, right? And that's the generator also in us, like you and I are
Yes, yes, it is.
generators which we were talking about. It's like, and River's a manifester. So in human design, and it's like, but as generators, like we have to feel lit up by whoever we're around. So if I'm watching someone being in their like highest vibrational state, whether it's dancing at a club or just sipping coffee and like just like enjoying the surroundings, I'm going to be curious about like, well, what are they seeing that, like like people watching, like what are they seeing over there? And that's going to maybe make me go over like, well, what do you think? Have you been to this coffee shop before? Like, I might open up something there and just be like, let's just talk. Like, because you feel like that there's an openness, but there's also like an authentic space of which people are, walking. So if I saw you walking and talking with somebody and you're getting lit up, I'd be like, damn, that boy is on fire over there. Like, I feel that energy. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
I think that's something really attractive. And I think that's whether it's dating or business, it's like you call in that same energy. It's a different question air that comes up, but it's there's a lot of similarities rooted in getting to know a client and getting to know someone you might date because you don't jump into sex with either of them in the immediate, right? It's a slow roll. You're learning what they're doing and you're learning what they're about and you're learning what makes them tick and what their core, whether it's the mission of their business or the mission of their life. And I think that there's a lot of similarities that can be drawn from that.
I think so too, Michelle. I really like the way that you put that. Like, I think some of it comes down to like curiosity, like being genuinely curious about people, which, I feel like is almost a cliche. Like, to me, there's an even deeper level beyond the curiosity, and it's an openness to being surprised, an openness to being surprised by
Mhm.
people, by moments, by connections. And I think that's a place you can only really get to when you're being really true and authentic in yourself. Because when you're not, you have expectations, right? You're grounded in what you expect of yourself, of other people, of particular connections. Like you're constantly like trying to make people fit. Again, whether it's dating, whether it's business, whether it's just how you're going through your life. But when you're like moving through the world, like, I wonder how I might be surprised today. Like I came into this podcast with the two of you, like, I wonder what might surprise me.
Yeah.
And
I like
releasing
I
my
like
book out into
saying
the world
I like
too.
s- yeah, and I like saying like I like being in awe of things. I like
Ooh,
being in awe of
yes.
Mhm.
people. Having awe, I don't think we have enough awe. Like I think I'm drawn to those cute videos where the kid all of a sudden just sees something for the first time. Like I have this photo of my daughter at
Mm.
Times Square for the first time and standing up underneath all the New York lights. And she's just like this. And it's like that picture was worth 1,000 words. I'm like, that is why I work hard. That is why we make time to travel with her. Or that's why, we want to have these experiences. And there's nothing more beautiful. And what I'm still honestly, transparently looking for is I want to feel in awe with someone else. I really look forward to that next chapter of my life when falling in love again and those pieces, but also like as the God has our beloved Andrea Gibson, who just recently passed away, and
Mm.
as both of you are poets, and I even have one of her. I forgot that this quote was from her until I saw it the other day. But I think the way
P.S. It's they.
it's what?
It's they. Her
Them.
pronouns were they,
Yes.
them.
They, yeah,
Andrea
they.
was back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, Andrew was they then. Sorry, yes. Andrea. And but when they express themselves and when they talked about their wife in
Mhm.
a way
Yeah.
that was like, who is that beautiful mystery over there? Is what Andrea
Mm.
said on Glennon on the We Can Do Hard Things podcast. They were having a double date. And Andrea was like, Megan was just doing something like doing the dishes. And I think Andrea was describing like they had just come off chemo or something. They were finally like out of that little chemo head and they were sitting at the table kind of across the kitchen. And in that moment was just like, who's that beautiful mystery to have awe in another human being like that?
Yes.
But then the magical part of it reciprocal, like being reciprocal, like whole, like I think that's why this week we have all been revving a little bit and really sad by somebody because we recognize that they were like some of the best parts of who we are all trying to become.
Well,
Right.
and I think for me, like Andrea reminded me that people are poetry and like our experience
Yes.
is poetry.
Yes.
And I know for me as a creative and an artist, like when I am creating photography for people, I am looking for those magical moments of people. I'm looking for the details. I'm wanting to show them the poetry of who they are and the experience that they're having. And I
Love that.
think, you know, other creative people can resonate with that, but I think one of the big things that Andrea, like so many people are very impacted right now by Andrea's passing, because Andrea reminded us that life is poetry. And you know, one of the last things they said was on their deathbed was, I fucking loved my life. And that hit me this week of, you know, if I were to
Yeah.
pass in a couple of days and I knew I was my end was coming, um, would I be able to say that? You know, am I showing up in the world that way? And so, James, you know, one of the things I really appreciate about you is that you kind of have that energy of like pointing out and living, at least in my experience of you, like having spent time with you in person, reading some of your poetry, and just your energy is that you point out what's magical, you point out these little moments, and then working with you this week, you know, having our conversation together about business and social media, like you really brought me back to a place of like authenticity, root back into that moment, like your clarity. And to me that felt like poetry because it reminded me, you know, I deserve a lot and I am a poem too. So
No, I love, God, I love how you just phrased all that because there have been so many poems posted this week that I've read more poetry from them than I've ever read before. And you're
yeah,
right, Andrea is describing, especially the love letters to Megan, like, oh my God, like the humanist experiences, the most mundane, are still through awe. And I
yeah.
think that's just such a beautiful thing. And I definitely want to start incorporating more of that. I will say, like I always have said, I've said yes so much in my life that I feel very blessed that if my plane went down tomorrow or if something happened, I'm good. Everyone in my life, I've been extremely intentional about letting people know how I feel at the moment that I feel it, even if it's just a text. Hey, just thinking about you today. Love you. Sending good thoughts. Like everyone who is within my front row or my chosen family to my bio family. And I think, but there's always more to do. Like it's a never ending process of looking and seeking awe, you know?
Oh, they're gonna make me cry over here. This is
Aw.
beautiful.
So one of my last questions is that I had that I really wanted to ask you was like, so what would be one thing that you wish every woman entrepreneur knew or believed about herself today?
That they're right on time, that you can't be late for the unfolding of your own life.
I love
Um, I mean, I know like this is something that I'm constantly like looking for mirrors for myself out there in the world because like we've been talking about for the last hour, like there's just so many different ways to feel like you're too much, you're not enough, or like you're behind. Like somebody else is married, somebody else has kids, somebody else doesn't have debt, somebody else has that second home, somebody else has that successful business, and they're your age or they're younger than you or whatever. And it's just like it's so easy to get all of these messages from other people. And then, we throw in our own expectations on ourselves, some of which, to what we've been talking about in this conversation about like authenticity and coming back home to ourselves and like these journeys that we've been on since, like you said earlier about like when, the first few years of your life, like you don't have those, but then they get put upon you, they get thrust upon you in all these different ways. And then you get to this point in your 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s and so on where it's just so easy to feel like you're behind, like you're not where you thought you were going to be or were supposed to be. And maybe those are things that you just genuinely wanted for yourself. Probably they're things you borrowed from other people, from your parents, from your friends, from wherever you went to school, teachers,
that.
society, whomever. But it's so easy to feel like you're behind for what's happening in your life. And not even just like the results or achievements or like the external stuff, although those are the most obvious ones. But like I think it's also really easy to find yourself just in these tender places of like, gosh, like how am I still like struggling with this, right? Like how am I still struggling with what men think about me? How am I still struggling with feeling like I'm not a good enough parent? How am I still struggling with like making money? Like all of these things. And like being able to hold that space of like love and openness and tenderness for yourself of letting that experience be true, because like I'm not over here telling you that like you shouldn't feel that way, because we are humans, and if we're
Mhm.
tender humans, like we're going to feel that way, but it's letting that be okay, right? Because like I think that like self-compassion is the thing. Like if you can treat yourself the way that you would a kind, caring friend. And I, as an aside, I my most gifted book out there is Dr. Kristen Neff's book, Self-Compassion. Changed my life. Everybody should read it. But like when you can treat yourself the way that you would a dear friend, with that kindness, that compassion, that letting them know that it's okay for them to be wherever they are, even if it's not where they want to be or where they hope that they would be. But like finding peace within that tension, I think just unlocks so much.
Hmm. I
I
love all
really,
of that.
I know, I really love that. I mean, there's so many other questions I want to ask now about male stuff, but I think I want to save that for another episode. There's like I could
Means we'll just
really
have to
go
have you
down
back
a
on for
whole
another episode.
yeah.
I'm
I mean, I
down.
could really go into like a whole other trajectory, and I just want to kind of leave it in this soft, like vessel that we have right here, right now, and just like I think it's just a beautiful place to land. Is there anything else, last thoughts, James, that you would love to just share with our community, and any other things?
I think we're all just living out loud over here, right?
Oh, look at him tie it back. River, do you have anything else?
No, I love where I love where we landed. This is
Yeah,
yeah,
I do
yeah.
too.
This is good.
Thank you, James, so much for your grace, your patience, your emotional aptitude. I am so excited for what's to come for you, genuinely. And I'm more excited for the future women who get to work with you and allow for that expansion to happen. So I'm wishing you all the luck, and when the book comes out, I will share it, make sure we're following each other. And yeah, I'd love to be a part and support in any way I can.
So how can our pod squad find you and connect with you? What's the best way to do that?
I'd say Instagram is my most active platform. That's at James Kerti, Kerti. If you're listening to this, my book is out, Unfolding Love, Poems for Tender Hearts. Check it out. It's
I'll put it in
certainly
the
on
show notes.
Amazon. Yeah, I'm sure it'll be in the show notes and links will be available. But that's a beautiful way for somebody to discover some of my work. But I publish a lot of my writing on Instagram as well. So it's a good place
Are
to
you
be.
on Substack at all?
I am on Substack. It's been a little bit since I published something, but it is on my roadmap for the next little bit once the book is out to
Cool.
be on there more. So I'd love it if people followed me on there too.
Yeah, I think around 7 months ago I started following Andrea Gibson on there, and man, it just allowed me to feel like I'm getting this little sweet lens of what's happening with them. So, and I feel like that with the other writers too, like Elizabeth, like Liz Gilbert, and
Yeah.
other really beautiful writers out there who are doing their own thing. And it's kind of a nice vehicle that's not necessarily through Insta. You can't see that stuff through Instagram and others. So it's another beautiful space. But
Yeah. The feeling of
thank
community and like in the comments on Substack, I think is one of the most beautiful things.
me too. I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, speaking as like a businessy person, like just I feel like we've lost a lot of the like sort of like creative commons in the online world over the last while now, and Substack
Everyone's
still
just
feels like
selling
one of those
shit at
places.
us. It's like,
Exactly.
God, get
Yeah.
back, get
Yep.
back to being human. It's like, okay,
Yes, human. Be
yeah,
human. There's good things about being human, or
yeah.
be a cat.
Hey,
If you want
while
to be
I
a
have
cat,
this
do that
meat
too.
suit on, I'm going to learn, I'm going to be as curious, and I'm going to live, through joy and do as much as I can while I'm breathing this lifetime's air. So,
Yes.
yeah. Thank you both. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
These are
Thanks
you.
for being here, James.
Thank you.
so freaking fun. Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode today, be sure to subscribe and share because what do we say, baby?
Sharing is caring.